Hello, good evening, greetings to all my divine brothers and sisters. So, here I, Kunal Nagpal, heartfully welcome you all to today's session. Dear friends, in today's session, we are basically going to discuss the detailed autobiography of the great pioneer, none other than Mr. Rishi Raj Sunak. This great personality has been an inspiration for many across the globe. We have discussed some of his details in our previous session, in one of our preceding sessions. But today we are going to study about his various phases of life in detail, and how are his specialities going to contribute immensely helping UK to recover from political and economic instability, because it has happened, I think, in the first time in last 200 years that the United Kingdom is facing such a major crisis, such a major turmoil, such a major imbalanced situation. So let's proceed. The Rishi Raj Sunak, even as India celebrates one of its own moving into 10 Downing Street, Rishi Sunak faces the daunting challenge of pulling the UK economy back from the brink. In 1869, the telegraph pioneer John Pender set up the British Indian Submarine Telegraph Company to lay the undersea cables from Britain to India. When English author John Ruskin was told about the venture, he asked, half in jest, "I wonder what the message will be." A century and a half later, a man of Indian descent, well tailored and whip smart, has become a powerful message unto himself to a country that has become a joke as it grasps with an economic crisis and political instability. Former hedge fund manager Rishi Sunak has become the youngest Prime Minister of Britain in 200 years and the first person of color and the first practicing Hindu to hold that office. The lights had long dimmed on the empire where the sun never set on Diwali Day this year. Westminster was drowned in the festive light of diversity as the empire struck back in style. Even the Labour peer Paul Botting could scarcely contain his joy. Britain has shown the world that you can have a truly multiracial democracy, and it is something I have fought for all my life. For Sunak, it has been an astonishing race to the top. He was the first minister to quit the scandal-scared Boris Johnson cabinet on July 5, which marked the beginning of the end of the Boris Johnson's government. Soon, he became one of the two candidates in the prime ministerial race after winning the backing of the majority of the Conservative MPs, that is, the Member of Parliaments. Later, he failed to win the hearts of Tory members against his party colleague and Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, a gutsy and vocal school teacher turned politician. Truss' government lasted a mere 49 days, an embarrassing record of its own, and Sunak was elected the Prime Minister after securing the support of more than half of Tory MPs. In retrospect, winning the Prime Minister's post may turn out to be easier than rescuing. He is our great personality, the great pioneer, the Prime Minister of Britain. So, as we were going in retrospect, winning the Prime Minister's post may turn out to be easier than rescuing Britain's flaying economy and from knitting international status. Sunak faces enormous challenges and dangerous pitfalls that could unseat him as rapidly as they did Truss. If he does not deliver the coming month, that is post-Brexit, the United Kingdom moved away rapidly from the promised land of financial opportunities and trade deals with the rest of Europe. Amid the highest inflation in 4 decades of above 10%, the pound plummeted. The pound plummeted vigorously to 1.03 to the dollar, its lowest level ever. In late September, food prices spiraled upward at the fastest pace in more than 40 years. A cost of living crisis hit all parts of the country as wages remained low. Consumer spending basically nosedived, with data released on October 21 showing that the people were buying less than before the pandemic. The interest rates were climbing up, sparkling angry reactions. Britain's famed bureaucratic and diplomatic efficiency and the advantage of a universal language was fast losing its steam. So, a self-confessed fan of Star Wars and a committed supporter of the Southampton Football Club, Sunak is also called a practicing Hindu, vegetarian and teetotaler. So as households face the prospect of high energy bills, Matthew Taylor, the chief executive of the NHS Confederation, chose to point out how research shows that up to 10,000 people die from underheated homes in a year, and the cost of living crisis will create an unprecedented number of people who won't be able to heat their houses. There will actually be more deaths this winter unless the government acts. Life in modern Britain has started to resemble Dickensian fiction. The Spanish daily La Vanguardia's London correspondent Rafael Ramos minced no words. In literature and art, the basic concept of that is absurdism is the tendency to avoid the constraints of the logical, shun experience and reality, and give oneself over to irrational and the arbitrary. He wrote, "In politics, this is what we are seeing in the United Kingdom. In 4 months, the century has had 4 chancellors, 2 interior ministers, and 2 prime ministers before Sunak took over. Even Russia was quick to join the jibe machine. Its foreign ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Truss would be the best remembered for her catastrophic illiteracy. Sunak was clear about the circumstances of the change of the guard at Downing Street, and making the changes was the theme of his first speech. So, admiring his predecessor's restlessness for change, he basically acknowledged that she had made mistakes and not born of it will or bad intentions. Quite the opposite. In fact, so rough ride to number 10 Downing Street, in an era surely to be counted amongst the most tumultuous in British political history. Rishi Sunak's period in the House of Commons backbenchers lasted a little over 6 weeks. As Britain's shortest serving PM Liz Truss left the arena, it was basically the time for Sunak. At the age of 42, the youngest premier in over 200 years to take change. All other milestones he touched, however, are dwarfed by that one epochal mark, the UK's first non-white and British Asian PM. His rise in the Conservative Party, though, has been conservatively smooth. Dear friends, here I would like to take a break and let you know that I'm currently being hospitalized and I'm in the hospital. So as a result, there is a lot of noise and disturbance in our background. So I apologize for the same. I'm trying my best to create an environment where the noise should be minimum. And please excuse me if the noise still disturbs our ongoing session. So let's begin. Of Punjabi descent, Sunak was born in 1980 in the district of Southampton to Yashvir and Usha Sunak, an NHS doctor and a pharmacist respectively, who were born in East Africa and migrated to the UK in the 1960s. Sunak's paternal grandfather, Ramdas Sunak, an accountant, migrated to Kenya from Gujranwala in pre-partition Punjab. His maternal grandfather, Raghubir Berry, migrated to Tanzania from Punjab and worked as a railway engineer. Berry moved to the United Kingdom in the mid-1960s with his family. Yashvir and Usha met in the United Kingdom and married in 1977. Evidently, the Sunaks wanted the best education for their 3 children, right? And Rishi Sunak was sent to one of the best schools, that is one of the most elite schools in the land, that is Winchester College, Trent. It was a glide to Oxford University, that breeding ground of conservative politicians. In past interviews, Sunak, a Star Wars committed Southampton Football Club supporter and a basic vegetarian and a teetotaler, has spoken about the sacrifices his parents made to send him to these two institutions, and which surely gave an early path to his career, therefore giving a great push to his entire endeavor to keep excelling in his professional career. The Brown Tory. While studying for an MBA at the Stanford University on a Fulbright scholarship, Mr. Sunak met Ms. Akshata Murthy, daughter of Infosys co-founder N.R. Narayana Murthy and philanthropist Sudha Murthy. The couple wed in August 2009 and have two daughters, Krishna and Anushka. The wedding, though attended by the Bengaluru's celebrities, was tastefully modest. Sunak worked for Goldman Sachs from 2001 to 2004, following it with the partnerships in two hedge funds, and his overall political career basically started with a flash of great brightness. Selected candidate for the safe conservative seat of Richmond, Sunak delivered a win in the 2015 polls. He took his oath on the Bhagavad Gita after being elected MP. An enthusiastic Brexiteer, his rise started in 2017 when he was made a parliamentary private secretary at the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. He was the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State at the Ministry of Housing and Local Government from January 2018 to July 2019. The Chief Secretary of State to the Treasury from July 2019 to February 2020, and appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer in February 2020 by the PM Boris Johnson, a post he held till he resigned in July 2022. During the COVID lockdown, he basically masterminded furlough payments and Eat Out to Help Out scheme for the restaurants. A series of scandals hit Johnson in 2022, notably the Partygate controversy, wherein Johnson was caught lying about the gatherings at Downing Street during the strict lockdown, one of which in 2020 Sunak later admitted to attending. So amid growing public discontent over a cost of living crisis, a new scandal concerning sexual misconduct by the MP Chris Pincher made Johnson's position untenable in early July. Sunak resigned, and so did Healthy Secretary Sajid Javid, triggering over 50 resignations. So the march that stabbed Johnson in the back was to cost Sunak in the race for the Tory leadership and premiership a month later, though Sunak basically denied it. The two challengers, former Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and Sunak, had different plans to tackle the cost of living crisis driven by high inflation and enormous energy bills. while Truss planned a trickle-down strategy pinned on a tax cut policy for the wealthiest. Sunak argued about fighting inflation first. Trust win and the basic pandemonium in the markets as she started unleashing her economic agenda is too recent to repeat. After the bloodbath, recalling Sunak's prediction that Truss plans of unfunded tax cuts and spending hikes would actually be catastrophic, Tory MPs backed him. So, in the past few days, much has been written about Sunak's Indian heritage, and there have been rumblings of the concept of racism, and make some resent his accent. Indeed, in a past interview, Sunak has spoken about facing racism as a youngster in restaurant. The former health secretary, Mart Hancock, a supporter, basically says he is a true born Englishman, but he brings many facets because of his heritage. Darren Johns, director of a finance firm, tells India Today, "I don't care that he is of Indian origin or a Hindu. There have been Indian citizens woven into the fabric of British society for well over 100 years. The plush lifestyle of Sunak and the wealthy heiress Akshata Murthy has often been disapprovingly noted by the British press. In early 2022, it emerged that as a non-domiciled person, Murthy was not paying tax on her earnings from abroad, as is her right, but the amounts saved created a controversy, and she said she would start paying taxes on such incomes. Murthy read French and economics at the Claremont McKenna College in California, has a diploma in fashion designing from Los Angeles, and has a designer label, Akshata Designs. She worked at Deloitte and Unilever before going to Stanford for her MBA, and is director for 3 films. In his first speech as the Prime Minister, Mr. Rishi Sunak mentioned the profound economic crisis Britain faced and vowed to make good his promise of a return to stability. So with growing disaffection with the Tories, Sunak will be held to his starring words. This is so inspiring. Such an inspirational leader UK has been blessed with. And this is the family of Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak, his wife, and their 2 angel daughters. Now going forward, let's discuss some core intricacies of the UK economy, on which Mr. Rishi Sunak has to work, right? And also, Rishi Sunak wishes a happy Diwali on October 26th at a Diwali reception at 10 Downing Street, That's and he tweeted the same on his Twitter account. Now, as we said, what are the big four challenges Mr. Rishi Sunak has to meet in order to stabilize the overall economic indicators of the UK economy? The big four challenges. From taming high inflation, especially rising food and energy prices, to fixing the economy's growth and restoring confidence in the stock markets, the new UK Prime Minister has task cut out. So let's go step by step. Runaway inflation. The consumer price index, that is the CPI, rose by 10% in the 12 months to September 2022, forcing the households to tighten the purse strings, right? Next parameter is the growth slide. Growth has been steadily slipping over the past few quarters, and as of now it's 0%. Yes, my dear friends, in the quarter 2 of 2022 it's nearly 0%. We will just show you the graphical presentations of these economic figures. Next comes the weakening currency of UK, that is the weakening pound. The British pound has taken a pounding, dropping to a record low in September. As of now, it is nearly 1.5 GBP per USD, that is 1.5 Great Britain pound per US dollar. Next comes slipping stocks. The stocks have been tumbling until recently, as seen in the FTSE 100 index, comprising 100 most valuable blue chip firms listed on the London Stock Exchange. So, the derailed government finances, with the UK undertaking higher spending to actually mitigate the pandemic's impact, the ratio of revenues to the current spending went from a surplus to a deficit of over 11% of the national income within 2 years. And what's the solution recommended? Introduce spending cuts and increase the government revenue by rising the taxes, but selectively. However, higher taxes can impact investments and jobs. Very true. The next aspect is economic growth. So, the economy has been stagnant since the start of the 2008 global meltdown. Brexit made it tougher for the UK to trade with its coolest trading partners in Europe. GDP growth has been sloping from 0.2% in quarter 2 of 2022 from 6.5% in quarter 2 of 2021. That's what we just quoted, that is nearly 0%, that is 0.2%. Now, what's the recommended solution? A series of policy measures including higher government spending since private investment has not been forthcoming. So my dear friends, these are the graphical presentations of the explanations we have just gone through. These are the graphical representations of various graphical parameters, and these are the solutions which we have just discussed. So this is the present status of the of the UK's UK's economy, prevalent in today's extremely sensitive global economic turmoil or the state of imbalance. Now let's see how does the newly elected PM, Mr. Rishi Sunak, stabilizes the UK economy holistically. So, the former Health Secretary Mart Hicon, a supporter, says he is a true-born Englishman, but he brings many facets because of his heritage. That is, Darren Jones, director of a finance firm, tells India Today, and also not born of ill will or bad intentions, quite the opposite, in fact, but the mistakes nonetheless, and I have been elected the leader of my party and your prime minister in my part to fix them. Sunak promised to deliver the commitments in the 2019 manifesto: a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of borders, protecting the environment, supporting the armed forces, leveling up and building an economy that embraces the opportunities of Brexit. Many in Britain believe Sunak will rewrite the British story, which has lost the plot. Like all good stories, this one too begins with someone new coming to the town, someone whose rise is basically a truly phenomenal story of success. Sunak's Punjabi grandparents came to Britain from colonial East Africa in 1960s. His doctor father and pharmacist mother sent him to an elite private school, Winchester College. The lineup of the school's alumni is impressive. General Sir Nick Charter, that is the chief of the defense staff, David J. Tholis, who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2016, Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi, the famed Indian cricketer, and George Mallory, Everest mountaineer. Sunak's biggest regret is that he never won a scholarship to Winchester, and his parents had to work out a princely sum of £43,000 annually as the fees. But not all elite private school students end up getting the British cabinet memberships. For that, one perhaps has to earn for a course established almost a century ago. Sunak joined Lincoln College at Oxford University as an undergraduate to study the philosophy, politics and economics, that is PPE. I repeat, philosophy, politics and economics. More than any other course at any other university, more than elite private schools, and in a manner unheard of any other democracy, Oxford PPE pervades the British political life, says Farzana Rebul, director of Curzon PR, from the right to the left, from the center to the periphery, from from top-notch activists to ultra-capitalists, from bad boys to the chambers. PPE graduates have basically worked in rooms of all sizes in British political mansions. So the Labour peer and thinker Maurice Glassman, who has basically studied modern history at Cambridge, says PPE combines the status of an elite university degree is the ultimate form of being good at school, with the stamp of a vocational course. Being good at school with the stamp of a vocational course. It is perfect training for the cabinet membership, and it gives you a view of life, a holistic view of life. It is a very profound cultural form. When Sunak graduated in 2001, went straight to Goldman Sachs. Like many ambitious students, after 2 years in California completing an MBA degree, he returned to London and Mayfair in 2006, where a new kind of boutique finance called the hedge fund was flourishing. He has hired Sir Christopher Horn at the Children's Investment, that is TCI, Fund Management, a basic coveted role at an activist firm. There are two kinds of people at the hedge funds: handsome, smooth talkers who chase the clients. So this is the basic story of the great pioneer leader Rishi Sunak, and as we were discussing the big four challenges the UK economy is facing currently, to which Rishi Sunak has to work day and night to bring back a UK economy back to stability and earn laurels, were derailed government finance, economic growth. Third is high inflation, and fourth is reviving up the stock markets. So in case of high inflation, the consumer price index rose by 10.1% in the 12 months to September 2022, with rising food prices making the largest contribution. The fuel prices increased by 26.5% in the year to September 2022, with average petrol and diesel prices at 166.5 and 181.6 prices per liter in the month respectively, compared with 134.9 and 137.4 pence per liter a year earlier. Now what's the solution to this particular problem? Put more money in the common man hands to help him tackle the high cost of living. A repeat of Liz Truss mistakes should be avoided. Any tax cuts that benefit the wealthy and backfire, with the energy demand set to go up to further in winter, pragmatic ways are needed to control the costs by sorting out the supply chain imbalance. So on the monetary side, the overall strategy by the Bank of England has already been raising interest rates to rein in inflation. This sounds to be a very, very strategic solution, and it needs to be implemented. Next challenge is reviving up the stock markets. The stock market has been falling sharply since mid-October. The pound has been dropping steadily to the dollar. Bond yields, the returns a bondholder gets on investment in bonds, it had gone up. Higher bond yields denote greater investment risk. Now, what is the proposed solution to this problem? Give clarity on the country's fiscal situation, what the budget of the new government will be like. This will basically boost the sentiments both in the currency and in the bond markets. Already the pound has gained and bond yields have fallen since Sunak's name was announced by the leader of the Conservative Party. So high energy bills may force the Britons to forego the heating in homes. Research shows up to 10,000 people die a year on account of unheated homes. The cost of living crisis will basically exacerbate their woes. Now, what does Team Sunak comprise of? Dooming Grab, who is 48 years old. He is the Deputy PM and Justice Secretary. He is responsible for reprising roles he held under Johnson. Rab was dropped from the Truss cabinet and has been a Sunak loyalist. Next is Jeremy Hunt, B5. Jeremy Hunt, he is 55 years old, Chancellor of the Exchequer. A key returnation from the Truss cabinet, where he served for scarcely a week after the tumult of his predecessor's mini-budget. Next is Suella Braverman. She is 42 years old, Home Secretary. Seen as anti-immigration hardliner, the abrasive Braverman was first from the same post just days ago. Her inclusion to a clear gesture to the Tories' right wing. Next is James Cleverly, 53 years old. He is the Foreign Secretary, a junior minister under Theresa May. Cleverly was first appointed Foreign Secretary under Truss. He is a staunch Brexiteer with a military background. Next is Ben Waylange, 52 years old, Defense Secretary. He is a military veteran. Wales has held the defense portfolio since July 2019 and offers the continuity in the face of Britain's commitments to Ukraine. Next is Michael Gove, 55 years old, who is responsible for leveling up the secretary. He is a seasoned politician in the young PM's team. Gove's job is basically to improve the conditions in the UK's economically backward regions. He held the same position under Johnson. So, dear friends, the Labour peer and thinker Maurice Glassman, who studied the modern history at Cambridge, says PPE basically combines the status of the elite university degree is the ultimate form of being good at school with the stamp of the vocational course, being good at school. And along with the stamp of a vocational course, It is a perfect training for the cabinet membership, and it gives you a way of life. So it is a very profound cultural firm. When Sunak graduated in 2011, he actually went straight to Goldman Sachs like many ambitious students. Then after 2 years in California, after completing the MBA degree, he returned to London and Mayfair in 2006, where a new kind of boutique finance called the Bedge Fund was flourishing. He was hired by Sir Christopher Horn at the Children's Investment, that is TCI Fund Management, which is basically a coveted role in an activist firm. These are the two kinds of people at hedge funds: handsome, smooth talkers who basically chase the clients. Now, on foreign policy, India wants continuity. While the foreign trade agreement is basically progressing with quite satisfaction, the issues related to migration and mobility need to be resolved early and to mutual satisfaction. To this, Miss Gayatri Israr Kumar states her very strategically important points. Unity and stability. Rishi Sunak, the newly appointed Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has announced that there will be first and foremost goals. As leaders of the Conservative Party, Sunak has vowed to unite his party as he prepares to lead it to the polls by 2024. Unity of the four regions of the UK would be the key priority for an incoming PM, given that Scotland has prominently echoed the call by the Labour Party for an early generally elected party, and the unresolved issues related to the Northern Ireland Protocol are basically burning again. So forging unity among the people of the UK who are divided on issues as never before is an obvious aspiration for him too. It is a foregone conclusion that as the Prime Minister, Sunak will be accorded the highest priority to the domestic matters. The chief among the economy, low growth, spiraling and continuous spiral of inflation, surging prices, labor shortages, mounting debt, the cost of living crisis, and the need to cap or at least control the cost of household energy. Though we have discussed these economic issues in detail which are prevailing in UK and what all strategies are being formulated to tackle with these issues, but still we being in direct contact with the UK economy, we need to be worried that how soon and how stably these issues are dealt with by the concerned authorities in the UK economy. Though the population is apprehensive about another round of austerity measures, Sunak has assured them of the compassionate approach. As Chancellor of the Basic Exchequer, Sunak had, during his peak of the COVID crisis, rolled out furloughs and schemes to support the vulnerable, which had been which have been well received. It may be anticipated that he will be hit the ground. He will be hit the ground running, but take the people along as approaches the various challenges with determination. So, what does his accession mean for the United Kingdom's foreign relations, particularly for India? The answer to this, will be clear when his government declares its foreign policy imperatives and the India-UK strategy. The UK Foreign Secretary has basically, on the day of the new government, reached out to the External Affairs Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar. That is a good sign. One can safely anticipate that there will be no dramatic departure from once in a generation report presented by the Boris Johnson government after its integrated interview or review of the UK's security, defence, development and foreign policy in March 2021. The document sets UK's national security and foreign policy objectives till 2025, envisioning a global Britain that would play a leading role on the world stage, particularly in addressing the issues like healthcare, defense and security, climate change and sustainable development. In these areas, India and the United Kingdom had a long-standing and successful partnership. So, as the PM, Sunak can't be expected to give strong leadership in basically functioning to the UK's foreign policy that has been diverted under the last 8 months by the situation in Ukraine. An Indian origin PM, the UK is a watershed moment for the Indian diaspora, and world leaders have not failed to recognize its significance. However, as one commentator pointed out, Mr. Sunak is there because of the tremendous respect that he commands in his party. So with regard to the ties with India, it should be desirable that continuity be added to Sunak's guiding principles, particularly while working towards the objectives jointly identified by India and the UK in the roadmap to 2030. Launched in May 2021, it was the first such 10-year commitment made by the UK with any foreign government. The initiatives and cooperation covered in this document range from space and science, advanced technology and education, to healthcare, trade, defense and security, culture, sustainable development and beyond. As Chancellor, Sunak joined Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman in basically issuing a joint statement in September 2021 and detailing a forward-looking strategy to bring a new impetus to bilateral trade relationship and cooperation in the economic, trade and financial sectors. Sunak had supported the goal of doubling the India-UK trade by 2030, currently $30 billion, and the early conclusion of a free trade agreement. For the first time, the basic anomaly of the social security payment by the Indian workers deployed in the United Kingdom without accruing the benefits of their contribution was brought on the agenda of the ministers, as also the FTA, that is the Foreign Trade Agreement grid. For the landmark trade treaty, the negotiations have been progressing satisfactorily. A few challenging chapters in the proposed FTA remain to be finalized. The Diwali deadline, that is 24th October 2022, has passed, but that does not reflect any lack of interest or dilution of the commitment on either side. The other crucial pact that has to be implemented is basically the Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement signed between India and the UK in May 2021. So it takes a balanced approach to the twin issues that have impacted India-UK ties for years. One is facilitating legitimate movement of nationals between the countries to boost trade and foster closer cooperation in education and services. The other is cooperation in the return of Indian nationals found to be illegally resident in the UK or who have overstayed here with their visas. The first step, that is the establishment of a joint workshop group to work out the most modalities of actually implementing of the MMPA has been patchy in the execution process. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom Home Office seemed to focus on sending back Indians in an ad hoc manner. The remark about the Indian nationals by Sunak Braverman, Home Secretary under Liz Truss, that the largest group of migrants who overstay here are Indians, was received with dismay by those working for the success of the MMPA and the finalization of the FTA, where smooth movement of students, professionals, service providers, workers and others between India and the United Kingdom is a central theme. Sunak has reappointed Braverman, and it is to be seen how well she handles the sensitive issue. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal had rightly stated that it would be best to wait and see the new government's approach to the FTA, that is the Foreign Trade Agreement. Here too, it may be basically anticipated that Sunak will send out an early signal for swift resumption, addressing difficult chapters in the political way. Sunak will no doubt bring his commitment, accountability and youthful passion to the job. Both he and his wife, the charmingly unassuming Akshata Murthy, as she surprised us by arriving without any fuss or protocol at the Indian High Commission, and then preferred public transport while leaving. So this is the proud moment, and this made us proud of their Indian heritage. India too is proud of PM Rishi Sunak. We wish them eternal success. So, dear friends, there have been basically two kinds of people at hedge funds: the handmade smooth talkers who chase the clients to basically part with their money, and dull ones in the black room with their shirts buttoned up badly. Rishi was the first type, says Mr. Sumesh, says Mr. Sumesh, says Mr. Sumesh Patiavil, director of Accenture, a firm that provides the strategic tech due diligence and value creation for private equity. So it was basically at the Stanford that Sunak met his wife Akshata Murthy, daughter of Indian tech millionaire N.R. Narayana Murthy. The two were married in a two-day ceremony in the district of Bangalore in 2009. Sunak later brought her to Southampton, to the family temple he attended growing up, and to Kutti's Baseri, where he had once laid the tables as a young student. His former employer Kuti Mia catered Thai food at a 200 strong reception for Sunak. The perfect son-in-law was soon made a director at the Caterman Investment, Murthy's private family investment vehicle. It showed how much Murthy trusted him with his money, said Putiawil. It was then basically parachuted to a Tory safe seat in Richmond, to the utter dismay of many Tory grandees. Sunak's billionaire father-in-law Narayana Murthy, however, was so enthusiastic about Sunak's parliamentary career that he had flown in and had even been leafleting on his behalf, wearing a Rishi Sunak's sweatshirt. Says Ben Judah, British journalist and author of This Is London and Fragile Empire. Sunak joined to his friends about him and his wife being the only immigrant population in the constituency. To be honest, argued Sunak, I think it's actually patronizing to assume the minorities should only run the minority seats. On May 7, 2015, Sunak won with more than 50% of the vote. Sunak then backed the Brexit movement and, more importantly, backed Boris Johnson to the hilt. After Johnson deposed Theresa May as the Prime Minister on July 20, 2019, he ensured that the Tories would return to power with a landslide victory in December that year. Johnson initially picked Sunak to be the Chief Secretary of the Treasury and then made him Chancellor of the Exchequer, equivalent to the Union Finance Minister in India, after dropping Sajid Javid in February 2020. On average, British finance ministers have a cabinet experience of 5 years, and this will have spent at least 15 years in the parliament, Sunak basically came and wrote new rules for himself. He went off the blocks quickly. When COVID basically struck in 2019, in late 2019, more than Johnson, Sunak became the man of the moment. His basic profile soared when he oversaw the generous cash schemes and the furloughs to help the needy and unemployed, which saw him being acknowledged as a compassionate leader even as he took the tough decisions to steady the tottering economy. Simultaneously, Sunak built up his public image, even enlisting the help of Cass Horowitz, co-founder of the Clerkenwell Brothers, an independent creative studio working across the strategy, identity, advertising, and social media. The particular approach he and his team took has probably a lot to do with the old advertising idea of positioning, finding a distinct persona within the market. So the slick but homely image that's being pushed for him is different from quite belligerent populist images that have dominated politics recently, and has the chance to stand out because of this, says Philip Sergeant, author of The Art of Political Storytelling. Why stories win votes in post-truth politics. So for the Labour Party, Sunak is a more difficult opponent than other Tory candidates given his relative youth, good looks, charisma, confidence, and can-do approach. Sunak struck at the right time by resigning from his position as the Chancellor in July, when he found that Johnson's reign had basically turned chaotic. In a tweet he posted soon after his resignation, he said, "The public rightly expect the government to be conducted properly and with great seriousness." So his resignation set off a cascade of ministerial departures that culminated in Johnson's ouster. Though losing the leadership race to Truss was a setback, it may have been a blessing in disguise. It gives Sunak more leeway and time to go about pulling the economy out of the morass it has sunk into. Sunak will have to deal with not just an economy in a shambles, but also a Tory party that is hopelessly split into groups, and a resurgent Labour Party that is demanding fresh general elections rather than wait till 2024. As Sunak told his partymen after being elected, "It's a do or die moment for us." So for the Labour Party, Sunak is a more difficult opponent than any other Tory candidate given his charisma, rare confidence, and can-do approach, in addition to his relative youth and good looks, captured the basic basic aroma, the basic pitili in a tabloid headline that called him Rishi. The British media, which can be both brutal and irreverent to the politicians, are even talking about how the Labour Party is pinning its hopes on an obscure statistic that believes a taller prime ministerial candidate tends to win. So both Labour leaders Sir Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson are relatively short at 5 feet and 8 inches, but the Labour leader is still taller than Rishi's 5 feet 6 inch height. So bring the little Rishi, they say. Rishi can find solace in the fact that one of the Britain's longest serving and most powerful prime ministers, Margaret Thatcher, was just 5 feet inches tall. 5 feet 5 inches tall. Like Thatcher, Sunak had to resort to tough, unconventional measures to deal with the collapsing economy and public confidence. Sunak is not a pragmatic centrist. Indeed, his basic devotion and the ascension represents a triumph of the Conservatives' New Statesman. The Tory members were offered two varieties of the neoliberalism: reignite tax cuts from Truss, or Thatcherite fiscal discipline from Sunak. The basic implosion of the former has basically created the ideal pretext for the later. His major tasks are to be controlled. His major tasks are to control inflation, to keep the economy happy, to keep the electorate happy, steady the pound, and lower the interest rates to get the investment going on to revive the economy. The economist Nitin Desai says this will require Sunak to take tough decisions, including spending cuts, particularly in the defense budget, if he doesn't want to impose the taxes in addition to other austerity measures. He also has to find ways to restore the trade relations with Europe if Britain's economy is to regain the former might. The government's long-term borrowing costs, previously close to zero, had risen above 5% by mid-October, even with the Bank of England shoring up demand to keep bond yields down, says Alan Shipman, a senior lecturer in economics at the Open University. At the same time, the consumer borrowing has also risen in cost, dousing any hope of a post-pandemic bounce back of growth, promoting investment. The present high rate of inflation should also in the past have caused the government's financial pressures by eroding the costs of public and private debt, but that shield has worn thin. Payments by 25% of the government's debt are now aligned with the inflation rate, and lenders are rapidly passing on the rise in borrowing costs to mortgage and credit card borrowers. What Sunak does for the economy in the next month will make or break his premiership, if not the UK. So, while there is the euphoria in India over the appointment, experts believe that he may turn out to be more loyal than the king and be tougher on India. His reappointment of Sunak Braverman as Home Minister signals a rough road ahead for the negotiations of the free trade agreement with India. So here, basically, we highlight the key points. That is, not a pragmatic centrist. Sunak, like Thatcher, is a votary of fiscal discipline. He will have to take tough decisions, including spending cuts, if he wants to avoid imposing taxes. When Truss was the Prime Minister, Braverman, as her Home Secretary, had said she had concerns about the trade deal because it would increase the migration to the UK, and Indians basically represented the largest group of the visa overstayers. India has been calling for the free movement of people to accompany the free movement of goods, and her comments provoked angry reactions from New Delhi. In April, both countries targeted a doubling of bilateral trade by 2030, up from its current value of $30 billion. India wants to increase the exports of leather, textiles, jewelry, and food products to Britain, while the UK is keen to sell whiskey to India by reducing the import duty of 150%. But the relaxation of visa rules have been one of the India's main demands, and reinstalling Braverman's could make this trade deal a casualty. So the other challenge for Rishi is to move beyond his privileged upper class background and address the cost of living crisis in the country. Sunak's immense wealth words against him, earning him a derisive sobriquet of Rishi Rich. He and his wife, two daughters, Krishna and Anushka, basically live mostly at their 5-bedroom house in this Kensington district, cul-de-sac in West London, worth £7 million. On weekends, the family basically retreats to their Grade 2 listed Georgian Mentor house in the village of Kirby Sixton in Richmond constituency in North Yorkshire. The house bought in 2013 is actually now worth more than £2 million. Later, he gave the house a new worth more than £2 million. Later, he gave the house a facelift with a 4 lakh indoor pounds, indoor swimming pool, gym, yoga, facelift with a 4 lakh yoga studio, hot tub and tennis court. Rising energy costs mean it will cost more than 14,000 pounds a year to heat the 12-meter by 5-meter pool, almost 6 times the average family's energy bill. So, his clumsy flaunting of wealth comes at a time when millions of Britons are thinking how they are going to survive, as the 2/3 are facing fuel poverty and hundreds of excess debts are expected during the winter. His 450-pound Prada loafers and 180-pound smart office mug have attracted criticism and snarky social media memes. The Sunaks own a flat on Old Brompton Road in West London for visiting family, and also a Santa Monica Beach penthouse valued at $5.5 billion. In a podcast with the Telegraph, Sunak said he is not dodging that question. I actually quite welcome it. To be honest, it's the opposite of annoying. Very few people bring it up with me. When I was a chancellor, I did town hall meetings very regularly with the members of the public. Virtually nobody asked me about it. The values are what are important. What I'm wearing is irrelevant to all of that. In 1947, a half-naked fakir, as Winston Churchill despairingly called Mahatma Gandhi, once brought the mighty British Empire down to his knees and forced it to grant India independence. It is a perfect irony. 75 years later, a man of Indian descent, dressed in a designer suit with creases so sharp that they could cut you, is seeking to liberate Britain from economic gloom. The Maharishi is all set to turn 10 Downing Street into the ashram from where he will rule the island of rainy cloud and cupcakes, with wide-ranging consequences for the people at home and abroad. Now, this is the man of words, and his basic words of conviction speak a lot about his personality. Though various critics were raised about his standard of living, and on the other hand, a very gloomy economic situation of United Kingdom. But my dear friends, he has portrayed it very, very beautifully, that how is he planning to strategize in order to bring back the stability of Britain. And I assure you guys that he is the gem of a person, and his words would actually mean a lot. Moreover, Mr. Narayana Murthy, who actually wed his daughter with this man, he must have seen a great person, a beautiful soul, a great personality in him. That's why he actually trusted him and gave and actually asked him to lead his empire. What does this mean? He is the man of words, and obviously, if now he has been chosen to be the Prime Minister of Britain, that too, the third Prime Minister in the tenure of just 2 months, in just a tenure of 2 months. My friends, just wait and watch what magic he is going to create, Mr. Rishi Sunak. And the recent similarity which was drawn, that Mahatma Gandhi actually brought Britishers on his knees when India had to be liberated from the colonial rule of the Britishers. Now, in the present context, he has been named Maharishi, who has to elevate the living standard and tackle with all the economic instabilities of the Britain in a very, very tactful and a strategized manner, with a well-thinking and with a well-thinking and far-sighted approach. So obviously he will be creating miracles, and I hope, my dear friends, this entire biography, this detailed biography of the great pioneer Rishi Sunak would have inspired you very, very deeply, and you may put your comments, you may put your valuable comments and suggestions in your in our comment box. I would try my best to actually clear your doubts and queries at my best possible level. One more thing, my dear friends, I apologize for any kind of disturbance caused in our session today. I know this is not an appropriate setup in which we are having this video conference. Actually, I'm being currently hospitalized, so because of certain commotion or because of certain disturbances, our session might have not been to the 100% balanced state. So but I know what I have to do. That is to provide maximum benefit to my listeners at the best possible level. So that's all for today, and we will meet soon. Till then, take a very, very good care of yourselves. Goodbye.